Our next guest that I'm going to welcome is Nielle. Nielle is also from 2Simple, as Tim told you earlier, and Nielle is going to share with us about Python in Pieces. It's a new program that 2Simple has developed, and it's incredible. It teaches the students about Python, but in a really original way. So, Nielle, welcome, and over to you.
Great, thanks, Karen. Right, what we're basically, as Karen just said now, that we're going to be talking about is our program called Python in Pieces. Now, it was originally designed as an extension upon our coding program within Purple Mash that you might have heard Tim speak about earlier for older children. But we found that as the development for Python in Pieces sort of went along, it would, we also then saw it's suitable for older children going into high school and young adult learners as well. Anybody basically who wants to learn to code in Python. And so I'm going to take you through the program itself today. We're only going to look obviously at a couple of at a couple of pieces within Python in Pieces, and hopefully this will then just sort of give you an idea as to what the program offers, what it can teach you, and how you as teachers are able to use it within your school. So I'm going to share my screen and we'll quickly get started. Okay, just giving me a couple of messages here. Great, so you should see my screen. All right, so the interface of Python in Pieces is very much, or at least very similar to what you would have found in Purple Mash, if you have ever explored that platform of ours before. Just as a reminder to anybody that's just joined in and didn't look at our 10 o'clock slot, Purple Mash is our primary school platform, educational platform, upon which you as a teacher can host pretty much any lesson, and with the content and activities and projects and programs available in Purple Mash, you're able to do pretty much anything on a primary school level. And so Python in Pieces looks at the coding aspect, as I said now, of what Purple Mash has done, and just extends upon that. So within Python in Pieces, we have 3 levels of different sort of lessons that you would go through, each lesson with numerous stages within the lesson that teach your pupils different sort of principles of coding, as well as obviously how to write in the Python coding language. So looking at the screen, we have an area for a new project, and when I click on this, it will ask me what sort of coding I want to start with, whether it be free code or something that is based on a microbit. Now, if you didn't know, microbits are little sort of chipsets that you can buy, upon which you can add extra additional sensors and things like that. A little robot, essentially, that uses the Python coding language to think in. So you're able to, with Python in Pieces, create code for your microbit to perform various different functions or play different games or whatever you want to do with it. In that way, you can also you click on the free code button, which then allows you just to use the Python in Pieces sort of coding interface upon which you can code. Now, while we're here, I want to show you how Python in Pieces works just very quickly, and then we'll quickly delve into an actual lesson and see how the program teaches you. So firstly, I want to make note of the fact that we have what we call a split view. As you can see, I've selected split view at the top. We've got the block view and the text view as well. And Python in Pieces is the only Python tutorial or teaching platform online that has the ability to translate what happens on the block side over to the coding side instantaneously. And so that does matter in terms of the fact that learners are able to easily progress from one form of entering their code into another, especially if they are used to other platforms like 2Code and Purple Mash, for instance, where it is mostly based on block coding. Children do then learn JavaScript sort of carrying, when they carry on through with the rest of 2Code. But Python in Pieces takes the exact same principle in that the block view and the split view are able to translate quite instantaneously. So to give an example, I'm going to drag a block in here. I'm going to choose a block here for text, and I'm just going to take our simple little sort of text block code over here, and let's put it over there. And inside it, I can type anything pretty much to say, look, if I want to, let's go for print. Actually, let's do it on this side. It will be easier to see. So if I go print, obviously I want to print something. I use my brackets. Sorry. Right. Sorry. What I'm teaching you, what I'm showing you here is what's actually covered in lesson 1. So let's go to lesson 1. I think that will be a little bit better. So I'm going to exit this, and we'll head straight into lesson 1. And really, what I want to show you is that even somebody like me who might have forgotten, a very basic function within Python as to how to print a line of text, it's the first lesson that you learn here in level 1. So we'll come back to some sort of more complex examples and things like that. I'll also take you to the teacher admin area where you're able to view all sorts of user guides and things like that. But let's go to level 1. And the first lesson in level 1 is the text output that I just mentioned. So when you click on this as a teacher, I am logged into Python in Pieces using my teacher account. I have the ability to launch the app, which means go straight into it. I can also set this as a task for my class. So just as Tim mentioned in his previous webinar, that you're able to do, set tasks and activities for children within Purple Mash. You're able to do the exact same thing for your students as a teacher in Python in Pieces by clicking on Set Task, which will then give you the chance to format your title and your description and who sets it and so on, as well as, very importantly, being able to add an audio instruction. But when I click on Next, I then have the ability to set a date for my task. And right at the end, my third window then allows me to set to whom I want to set this task specifically, whether that be an entire class like so, or these individuals within the class. All right, so let's go into the lesson itself. I'm going to launch this. And our first lesson starts with obviously the text input. So it says here in this lesson, you will learn what a string is in Python, the use of the print block to print strings and numbers, and how to add strings and multiply the string by a number. And then, of course, how to format text with line breaks. So quite a couple of stages involved. We'll see that lesson 1 has a total of 9 stages. And each stage starts with a video. So I can play this video. It is a little tutorial given to us by one of our colleagues. And she basically then gives you just a rundown of what would be expected from you in this lesson. All right, so I'm going to click on Start. Right, stage 1 begins with in Python a string. Oh, so let me just pause that. In a string, in Python, a string is a sequence of letters with which we use to present text, and we can use the print function to print strings off of the screen. Right, so that's what I wanted to try just now. If you click on the hint button, just by the way, that will then affect your scores. It will just unlock the hint, but then you sort of given the answer away already. So it's a bit nicer to be able to give yourself the challenge of leaving the hint and actually trying what they're saying. So it says here, I have 2 tasks which I need to complete in this first stage, and that is to change the print block's output to hello world instead of ABC, which is at the moment. Then, of course, to check that everything works correctly. So it starts your pupils off on a very, very, very simple basis in that they are shown that whatever they enter onto the screen, whatever they put onto either the block side or in the text view, will have some sort of effect on the output side over here. All right, so I'm going to do that. We can either go for the block view like this. If we just want to focus on the text view, we can click on that. But I've got my split view here, which will show you that when I type in hello world and run my program, it will work. It then asks me to assess what I've done. So it will always ask, or Python in Pieces will always ask the student or the learner what they've just done, and to actually give them, and mark themselves, almost like a checklist of what they've done, just to reinforce that learning. So I'm going to go and assess and say, okay, cool, I've done what they've asked me. And then it will say, check to see that your output in the output panel shows what you wanted to. Right, so it very, very sort of slowly but surely teaches you the concept of coding, and that whatever you enter into the code will be the output that you expect. All right, so stage complete, and let's move on to the next one. And this is then where it will ask you to, just talk about yourself and things like that, which really just reinforces, obviously, what you've just learned. Great. So progressive learning is the main sort of theme within Python in Pieces, in that the program is very, or at least, shall we say, we are very well aware that many people who start using Python in Pieces have absolutely no idea how to code in Python whatsoever. And so it really makes it easy to introduce your children to, to the concept of coding, and obviously coding in Python. Now, this progressive sort of learning can be found over here in the teachers section, where you can peruse through a number of user guides, among which we have the lesson contents and progression page. This is just a PDF to show you more or less what you can expect to learn from each lesson within Python in Pieces. And so it starts with text output, which is very easy, and moves you onto much more complex coding principles that you would learn in later challenges over in level 2, and then obviously in level 3, where you would learn, functionalities that look at all sorts of, different paradigms that deal with, not just your regular loops and branches and things like that, but how to shorten the code and actually make Python in Pieces make more sense to the coder itself. So later on, you'll find that it focuses on creation of the code from the coder itself, and not from the the sort of boilerplate or typical pieces that you that coders typically find all over the internet and piece together to actually write their code. Python in Pieces teaches you how to create that syntax from scratch by yourself. So finally, I want to look at a couple of examples that you are also able to peruse as a teacher. These examples just show you really the power behind Python, and Python in Pieces specifically, in that if I open an example like the Unicorn Naude, for instance, it's a game that was written by one of our colleagues. And so this looks like quite a bit of complex code, in that we've got all this block code here on the side. But ultimately, an entire game has been created using only 39 lines of code in Python in Pieces. This is all Python code, which, by the way, can also be used on another Python coding platform, and it would work exactly the same. All right, so over to our design side, I want to show you that you're able to use Python in Pieces to create things like games, all sorts of interesting programs and things. And there's a visual aspect to it as well, in that you're able to draw and add sprites, which are basically characters. Like this little unicorn is a sprite, for instance. And you're also able to add objects and shapes and things, as is the case with something like this ball. And so if I run this program, you might see that on the left-hand side, sorry, on the right-hand side, I'm busy just sort of playing the game that's been presented to us. At least that was made here in Python in Pieces. So this is just a great example of how the program can be used. As you see, if I let go of the ball, if the ball drops to the floor, then it says, "Oh no, you lost," and that is all according to the code that has been entered here. So really, the possibilities are endless, and I do want to stress that this is a program that is not just made for primary school children. It's not just made for high school children. It is also applicable to pretty much anybody who wants to learn to code in Python. This is a great resource, not just for teachers, but for young adults and, again, anybody as well. Cool. Karen, are there any questions that you would like to ask? Is there anything that I can answer from anybody else?
So thanks, Nielle, for sharing. I see that if you'd like to sign up,
Cool.
so I think Tim must put that if you'd like to sign up with Python in Pieces, you can ask for a trial. I thought it was a question. But thanks for sharing. To those of you who are listening, Python in Pieces is a really awesome way of learning to code, and goes from really simple tools all the way through. So building up the progression of knowledge across it is really nice. So go and have a look at it. And as the comment says, sign up for a trial and see if you like it. But thanks, Nielle, for being here today. I really appreciate your input and your thoughts. Thanks for sharing this awesome product with everybody, and that the teachers hopefully found it useful who are wanting to introduce coding at their... Oh, wait, there's a question.
Cool.
How different is Python to the Scratch program?
Okay, so Scratch is a very basic sort of formatted coding interface for little ones. You get Scratch Junior, and then you obviously get the actual Scratch version. And so Python in Pieces is just slightly more complex and suited for children who are able to take very concise instructions and follow them out. Whereas Scratch just is a little bit simpler in that regard. That's not to say that... Sorry, Karen, go for it.
No, go.
Yeah, that's not to say that you need to be incredibly smart to use Python in Pieces. As we saw, it's so easy to begin in that the first instruction is to just write "Hello World" and make sure that the program runs. And so with the tutorials that are given throughout Python in Pieces, it's suitable for, I would say, children from about grade 4 and up.
So Nielle, perhaps you want to comment this in terms of the robotics and talk about how Python in Pieces does have a robotics component and how they're going to be adding more.
Yes, there is a robotics component, obviously, in that you're able to enter code for microbits, specifically made for microbits within Python in Pieces. It gives you the templates and all the tools to be able to code your microbit to, for instance, flash a certain digit or something on the display. You're also able to then add pieces to your little microbit with sensors and motors and so on. And using Python coding, you can then instruct your microbit with all its pieces, to do whatever you want, whether it be follow a line or display a certain word or whatever the case may be.
Thanks, Nielle. Thank you very, very much. It's been good that you're sharing with Python in Pieces. Thank you. Just Thanks. Before we go on to our next presenter, we just want to say to everybody, remember to sign up for the prizes. Don't have a look at the forms. Hope you're playing some of the games that are running in the back end of the program. Zadia, just in terms of Scratch and Python, Python is a coding language where the children can actually learn to do the program and actually go and get a job with it. Whereas Scratch works within your block-based coding, and it's an introduction to coding. So for me, the exciting thing about a thing like Python in Pieces is you're looking at the block coding, but you're actually learning a language that by the end of the program, the children will be programming in Python, and you can actually go and get a job with that. So for me, that's the real difference in terms of using a product like this. But thanks again to 2Simple for showing us that.